Welcome back into the Sports Source. The segment brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. Folks, the Ogle family. That's when you think of hospitality businesses in the Great Smoky Mountains, you think of the Ogle family. They've been doing it since the Great Smoky Mountains National Park first opened, literally. That's how long their family's been involved in it. Parkside Cabin Rentals, they take care of you. They have dozens of cabins with dozens of layouts, all of them just fantastic. You can pick by the location. Do you want to have people nearby? Do you want to be by yourself? Do you want to be closer to Gatlinburg? Do you want to be far away from Gatlinburg? Whatever you're looking for, they've got it. ParksideCabinRentals.com. Make that your start and stop point if you're going to the Smokies in this beautiful winter season. Got some snow coming in here in the next couple of days. It'll be a beautiful time to get to the Smokies at Parkside Cabin Rentals. All right, welcome in the last member of our panel because we're about 30 minutes over already. You're late getting in here. Chuck Cavaleris, thanks for joining us.
And you can't blame it on me this time.
Can't blame it on you. You've been sitting there watching and you haven't been interrupting. You haven't been throwing anything at us. I appreciate that. All right, guys, if you look at this game, three things we talked about on this show, either before the season or early in the season, all popped up. And let's take a look at this. Is this the definition of Heupel ball? First, score the majority of their points in the first quarter. I went back and looked at every game that Josh Heupel has used this offense, going back to his days at Missouri as an offensive coordinator. They score most of their points in the first quarter, score most points in the first half rather than the second half. You saw that in this game. His teams are typically called for a lot of penalties. He's bottom of the nation at UCF just about every year. This year, 10th in the SEC in terms of penalty yards. That's 10th the bad way, not 10th the good way. And you saw a ton of penalties. While the numbers did look skewed, Tennessee versus Purdue, you look back over the season, it's like, well, you're a team that gets a lot of flags. And then last, your defense allows a lot of yards and points due to the speed of Heupel's offense. We wondered, I thought this was one of the few games this year. You had it pop up in the fourth quarter a couple times against better opponents. This was one of the few times this year where I felt, okay, this is what I expected. This is what I thought the defense was going to look like. They did a tremendous job of masking that with effort and tackles for losses this season. Weren't able to do it against Purdue. Do you think was this game closer to what you expected going into the season than maybe what we got? It was for me. I thought they overshot what I expected. This was what I expected this year.
Yeah, very much so. Pitt early, Kentucky in the middle of the season, I think was one of those games where it could have gone either way with the team at the ball at the end, and then I think we got all of that in one in this Purdue game. So, yeah, I think it's an indication of what we'll see more of because more of these teams, like some of the opponents that you mentioned earlier, the South Carolina, Missouri, that fans say, oh, we're past them, they're still going to be okay, and they're going to get better offensively, which means they'll be more competitive probably in some of these games.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of what we would see, although I'll admit I wasn't in tune to the number of penalties going in. I learned that as Tennessee started racking up penalties this year that his teams typically had a lot. But, yeah, that's a lot of what I thought. The defense held up better than I thought it would this year for the most part. Mm-hmm. They didn't against Purdue, but they did for the most part this year. And so I kind of thought, well, that's, the Pittsburgh game, it kind of reminded me of that. But there were other games, and Josh, you mentioned Kentucky, where there was just, you weren't going to stop them, they weren't going to stop you for the most part. And, yeah, I thought that was a lot of what we would see this year.
And can't you make a case, and didn't we see the stat, isn't it just about the fastest tempo in the country?
Yep.
Doesn't it rank number one? My question is, does your roster match that? Does your roster have the depth?
Does defense, no.
At this point, no.
Yeah. So that's what I question. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching like Loyola Marymount play basketball. They're so out of control. Yeah, they're going to make some plays, but they're going to have wild passes. And with Tennessee, it seems like that first down is so important to get you clicking, to get you going.
I got a great stat on that.
Oh, do you?
You want it?
Sure.
Yeah.
They've had 119 possessions this year where they made a first down.
Yeah.
60 touchdowns.
Yeah, see, there you go.
So more than half the time when they get a first down, they score a touchdown. And then they had about a dozen field goals.
Yeah.
So it is a big key.
I would be now I'll give you an assignment. Go back and break that down by quarter, and I bet most of that's going to be first quarter.
Yeah, Chuck, I'll get you to help me with that.
Okay. I'm just glad I said something that sounds right.
They led the nation in first quarter scoring this year. I'd be really curious to see where they were in second quarter scoring.
Yeah, we did that where we showed everybody by quarter over 80-something games that Heupel's done this, and the first quarter is by far. They average about 23 points in the first half, about 16 points in the second half, which is not a huge discrepancy, but when you look at it, this is a team, when you're sitting there and you're up 21-7, you're thinking, get another one, get another one here, get another, because you know the spigot's probably going to start to get turned off a little bit. Now, to their credit, they wound up putting up 45 points overall, so they got 24 points in the second half. But it was more of a slog than it was there early on. Does this change anybody's view? You mentioned it. I've had a lot of people say, okay, well, it's like South Carolina, Missouri, Kentucky, you're better than them. I wasn't ready to go there yet anyway. I think Heupel's good. I think he was the right hire. I'm cool with that. But I wasn't ready to say, yes, all the ills are behind you. He's never going to lose to South Carolina again, or Kentucky, or Missouri. If you can lose to Purdue, to me, this is kind of smelling salts that, oh, okay, all right, let's calm down here. Let's the idea that now it's just Georgia, Florida, and us is a bit extreme for where this program is and maybe where his system can get you. Chuck, your thoughts on that?
I agree with that 100%. I feel better about where you are compared with Missouri. Kentucky, I mean, they look pretty good to me. South Carolina was one of the big surprises. So I don't think you can just say it's just going to be Georgia and Tennessee. We're even better than Florida now in the East. You're still on kind of level footing with several teams.
Yeah, you're going to have to prove it for a while before you're trying to be the best of the rest at this point. You're not competing with Georgia. Florida's still ahead of you, although there's an opening there.
Right.
But you're trying to be the best of the rest. You've been in that muddle. Kentucky can argue they're the best of the rest the last 2-3 years. But there does seem to be this feeling that things went well this year, so now you're way up here. It's like, no, until I see you beating these teams with regularity, I'm still putting you in that pot with the mix of them. And I know you're down on South Carolina and down on Missouri. In a given year, though, I don't think you're consistently going to be better than those guys on a regular basis. And if Purdue can upset you, somebody else can upset you.
Well, you need to prove it.
That's all. Yeah, it's time to prove it.
Yeah, because I would add from a personnel standpoint, the players, those teams that Tennessee will face again in the SEC, compared to what Purdue had with the players that were missing, I don't think there's a big difference there. So, yeah, you have to be prepared.
Yeah. All right. Very good. When we come back, 3 quick questions on Heupel's year, the SEC's best coaches, and the SEC, I don't know what it is. I've changed it and the T's is wrong. So I'll surprise myself when we come back on the Sports Source.